What is up, everyone? Hope everybody is all good. Gonna go over today a very important topic in the whole scape of your training program and how we're gonna progress in the gym. Because without this, nothing is gonna happen. It's that vital. So we need to get this right and understand the premise behind why we're progressing, how we're going to progress, how fast it is too fast, how little it is not enough, all that type of stuff, because there's a lot that goes into it and there's a lot of mistakes that a lot of people make in the gym when it comes to their overall progression. So let's get into it. So the very first thing, like, this is non-negotiable. You've heard me talk about this, numerous times, is you have to log your training. You have to use some sort of, whether you want to use I've got a notebook here, whether you want to use old school pad and paper with a pen, if you want to use that, you use a notes on your phone or a specific app, whatever it is. I don't care how you track, you just need to make sure that you're tracking your training. You need to know how many sets and reps, what you've done weight wise, how much load was on the barbell, 4 weeks ago, 4 months ago, and ideally 4 years ago. You need to know all of your training variables and your numbers across the board for all of your lifts, because again, ultimately, what gets tracked gets measured, and it keeps us accountable for actual long-term progression. Because let's be honest, if we look at, let's take an example, if we take an inclined dumbbell bench press, just an example, as an exercise, if we look at that exercise and then maybe our chest press machine numbers, if we look at those from the last, if we look at our numbers now and then we look at our numbers from 18 months ago, if there's been no change in the right direction, something isn't right. So that's where the logbook comes in, is that it keeps us accountable to make sure that we're progressing properly and our training is actually working. Because again, if we just come in and do random shit all the time, we don't track our training, we just go by instinct and we go by feel. How do we know over time that progression is happening? Now, some people can do this, but that's the minority. Probably high level IFBB pros may do this, but they may have superior genetics. They just look at weights and they may grow. You're not that, so you need to do everything in your power to make sure that we're progressing our training the best way that we possibly can. So we have to get that down. You have to logbook your training. That's non-negotiable for me. So this is the next big point, is we use the logbook, but we don't then just cheat the logbook and we come in and we start throwing weight around with terrible technique and just trying to beat numbers in the logbook, because that goes against the whole premise of the logbook. If we're cheating the logbook just to add in an extra £5, that's pointless. So for example, if we're adding weight to the barbell with shit technique, other muscles are taking over, what's the point? Now let's take an example of a back squat. Okay, we're doing a high bar back squat for our quad development. So on 1 week we do a set of 8, okay, with 300 pounds. We come in the second week, and in order to get that 9th rep, instead of staying in our quads and letting our quads be the limiting factor, we start letting our hips and lower back and everything take over, and we think that we've got an extra rep and we've got stronger, but ultimately we haven't, because we let our technique go to shit and we used other muscles and we let the other muscles take over. So can you see how by just chasing reps and just chasing numbers without keeping standardized technique, it's going to shoot you in the foot and it's not actually progressing in the right way? It requires a bit of an ego check to do this. You really need to be honed in with your technique, and you really need to be honest with yourself. It takes a certain type of discipline in order to progress this way properly. But again, I guarantee you, if you take this on board, and this is the style of an approach to your training that you're going to make, you are going to make better progress long term than someone who is just shooting for more numbers, more sets and reps, all this type of stuff, more weight on the barbell, but with dog shit technique. The person who can keep their ego in check and progress nice and slow with standardized technique, you're going to make better progress. We have to use the logbook in the right way, and it's not a tool just to come in and beat performance week after week with dog shit technique. It's there, so we know what we have to beat nice and slow, and we don't want our ego to take over. Okay, so I want to give you 2 examples of a wrong way to progress and what I see a lot of people do, and then a right way and a more realistic way that progression is going to happen. Okay, now this will vary as well on a person's training career. How long have they been training? Now let's say, I imagine the average person who is going to listen to this and watch this video is someone who's going to have a couple of years of training under their belt. So you're not going to be completely new to the gym. So this sort of progression is probably going to be more realistic and feasible. So what we're looking at here, this is a wrong way to go about it, and this type of aggressive progression, it won't happen. It's always a red flag that something isn't going right. Okay, so let's say we've got a hack squat. Now you've already been doing hack squats previous to this, so this is not the first time you're doing hack squats ever, and we've got 6 weeks into it. Let's say you've already been doing hack squats, you've just come off a deload phase, and now we're coming in to start a new block. Okay, we put 300 pounds on for 6, right? And then the next week we add 10 pounds, and we go 300 pounds for 6, and then we go 310 for an extra rep. So within 1 week we've added 10 pounds, and we've also added a rep. I guarantee when you get to a certain level of advancement, it's going to be very, very hard to add 10 pounds to the barbell and a rep at the same time. It can happen every now and then, but the stars have to align for that. You know, it could just be one of those days where you feel really, really strong in the gym. You've had all of your other variables outside, your sleep, your nutrition, recovery, everything has been on point, and you may have them days where that can happen, but that is not going to happen every week. So 300 for 6, then up 10 pounds an extra rep, and then you're not going to go up another 10 pounds the next week and match reps. That just won't happen. You're not going to go 330 and then add another rep, 340, add another rep, 340, 10. So you're not going to add in 6 weeks to a hack squat with good technique. You're not going to add 40 pounds and then 4 reps. That is just not going to happen. It doesn't matter who you are, if you're doing this properly, it's progress is not that fast. That is a telltale sign. If someone can do this, that is number 1. Your first week, you wasn't training hard enough in the first place. It's something called sandbagging, where you're leaving a lot in the tank, and this was probably your realistic where you needed to be from week 1. So you were probably training with poor intensity, which is the first one. And number 2, if you was training with good intensity, you were just using excessive momentum, probably short-changing your range of motion, letting other muscles take over. Again, using maybe more of a bounce out of the bottom on the hack squat. There was just numerous different factors that were contributing to you putting more weight on and more reps on, which wasn't actually more stress on the muscle. Okay, so that's a wrong way to do it. Now let's look at a more correct way and a more feasible way that progress is going to happen, and this is something that I will probably expect to see. So 300 pounds for 6, and then the next week same weight but you add a rep. Okay, that's more feasible. That's probably what a lot of your training is going to look like. Next week we add 5 pounds, and then we still get 7. Okay, so we've just jumped up 5 pounds, but we've matched reps. Okay, next week same weight but we've added a rep. Next week we bump up the weight a touch and we keep the reps the same. And then the final week we're 307.5 and we've added a rep. So overall we've jumped up in 6 weeks 7.5 pounds and we've added 3 reps. Okay, that is more feasible progress over 6 weeks instead of the previous example where you're going to jump up 40 pounds and add 4 reps. We've jumped up 7.5 pounds and added 3 reps. That is more feasible, and this tells me that someone is progressing properly the right way with good standardized form, and we're making sure that we're keeping everything as strict as possible. Now that's 6 weeks of progress. Imagine if you could keep doing that for a year. Okay, you may then end up with an increase of 40 pounds and extra reps. That's more feasible over a year with good technique. Now imagine the difference that's going to make to your quads if you do this the right way. Okay, it requires an ego check, as I say, but this is the way that progression is going to happen when you're doing things right. Okay, so what governs this? What is the the overall premise behind this. Now, people might think and look at this. No, this is extremely slow progress. This is not gonna work. I can guarantee you it will, because you need to look at the overall premise that underpins the training process that we do. It's the stimulus recovery adaptation, or known as the SRA curve. So the extra rep, or the extra 2.5 pounds, that is the stimulus. So the training session is then the stimulus, the body recovers and the body adapts. So just driving the extra rep or an extra 2.5 pounds, that is the internal stimulus for the body to make to recover from the stimulus that we provide, and then we come back stronger. We do not need to be, let me go back to where I was. We do not need to be adding £10 every single week and all these extra reps, because ultimately, as I've said before, you're not doing that with good technique anyway. All we need is an extra rep, an extra 2.5 pounds. That's going to drive the internal stimulus, and if you do that over a long period of time, that's what's going to show up in your physique. But the key to all of this, as I say, it's doing it nice and patiently and doing it with standardized technique. That is where a lot of people fall down. They just want to chase numbers in the logbook if they are tracking their training in the first place. They just want to chase numbers. As things get more difficult, as they start to put more weight on, they start to shortchange range of motion, use excessive momentum. They don't control their eccentrics of the movement. So again, it's poor when we're trying to get bigger. So it just requires a little bit of an ego check. Okay. So the main thing, patient progression will always win in the end. Okay. Training. The big message that I want to finish on is that training is not about what you can do in the gym. It's about what you can do, then recover from, and then come back again stronger and potentially beat that the following week after that, and we just keep progressing. That's what it's all about. That is the name of the game with training. All right, so hopefully makes sense. If you take this on board, you're going to get better results over the long term in the gym, especially if we're looking for full muscular development and to be as jacked as we possibly can. Standardized technique and progression with good form over time, making sure that the target muscle is the limiting factor, and we're not just slinging weight about for the sake of it. If you're trying to get bigger, you're not going to train exactly like a powerlifter trying to move weight from A to B. We're trying to really make sure that we're targeting the muscle, and a couple of these tips here are going to go a long way. All right, let me know what you think. Any more video ideas, topics you want me to go over, just let me know. Drop them down below, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.